Chase McCarty will be sharing a presentation on crowdsourcing research at scale with Social RV. So Chase McCarty is the founder of Social RV, one of the largest remote viewing research platforms in the world. A Silicon Valley software engineer, he's working on products with hundreds of millions of users and building founding teams at the 0 to 1 VC-backed AI startups. He brings cutting edge software skills and technical rigor to the space with a goal of onboarding the next million people to the sci space through new research and accessible learning experiences. Welcome to the stage, Chase. Go ahead. You got it.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. And thanks so much to CUSAC for inviting me. I very much appreciate it. You guys are all doing amazing work. My name's Chase, and I'm going to talk to you today about Social RV, social remote viewing, my remote viewing research platform. So I'd like to kick it off with one of my favorite quotes from science history. In the 1850s, leading scientists of the day called temperature and electricity imponderables because they had no weight. They couldn't be touched, and so they were deemed unmeasurable, unknowable, and outside the realm of science. Today, sci is kind of this way. It's hard to measure, it's hard to touch, right? And so science just hasn't caught up yet with measuring these sorts of experiences. So about myself, I'm a software engineer in Silicon Valley, and as Stacey said, I've worked across companies with hundreds of millions of users, all the way to 0 to 1 VC-backed startups. Currently, I lead some AI teams at Roblox, which is the world's largest gaming company. Before that, I was founding engineer at a startup called CodeGen, which built AI agents back in 2023, and it was acquired last year by ClickUp. Social RV is a project that I started during a sabbatical between those two roles. I had some time off for once from work, and one of the questions that I really wanted to answer for myself was whether psi was real. I had heard a lot of stories and anecdotes here and there, but I really wanted to dig into the actual research and just answer that question for myself. And I came across a problem while doing that, and that was there wasn't really a single definitive place on the internet with verifiable proof that psi was real. There wasn't like one place you could point someone to and be like, look at this, that will answer your question. There was vast amounts of psi research when you looked for it, but it was really hard to get access to the raw data. And even if you could get access to that raw data, you couldn't prove that it hadn't been tampered with. And finally, like if this is real, why isn't the world more aware of this? And how can we solve that problem, assuming it is real? And so our mission has evolved into furthering the evolution of human consciousness by driving broad acceptance of psi abilities. And we kind of have three key steps we think that we're going to take to get there. And so one is providing that definitive source of proof on the internet for open-minded skeptics. That single link you could point someone to and say, no, here is data you can see for yourself. You can scrutinize to whatever level you want, and you can see that it's real. The second is assuming that it is real and you can see for yourself that it is. How do we introduce remote viewing or other psi skills to millions of people worldwide? Help them discover and develop their innate psychic abilities through accessible evidence-based practice. And then finally, how do we reliably do something economically useful with it? And so we were looking at psi skills in general, but we landed on remote viewing specifically to focus on. If you're not familiar with remote viewing, it's a structured protocol for gathering information about a distant or hidden or future target. Practitioners create drawings, written impressions of the target that they can't see or know beforehand. It was originally developed at Stanford Research Institute and then used by the United States government to spy on the Soviets for over 20 years. And their research demonstrated that all humans possess this ability and it could be trained and it could produce accurate results. So this is really important because a lot of psi skills are either really hard to measure or really hard to crowdsource. For example, mind sight's easy to measure, but if you have a bunch of people on the internet, it's hard to prove that they're not peaking. Or other types of psi experiences, like your general psychic reading, might be really hard to measure the accuracy of. So in remote viewing, this would be an example of a session, some perceptions that somebody has gathered about the target that they'll see in the future. And then this would be an example of that target. This is a session taken from Social RV. And so you can see really obviously, that there is a correlation there, and we can actually measure the correlation between their impressions and the actual target. And then on our platform, we've also done some novel things with blockchain-based cryptographic verification. So we can actually prove that all of our data is double blind. We can prove that even social RV couldn't have known or couldn't have influenced the results, things like that. And so we can actually, for once, solve that final problem of knowing that the data hadn't been tampered with, knowing that you have the full data set, that final problem that I couldn't solve when I was looking for the data myself as an open-minded skeptic. So the social RV platform kind of has three main components today. We have a community where you can share your sessions. You can see other viewers' results. You kind of can comment on other people's sessions and get that community shared experience around your practice. We have advanced AI judging systems so that we can measure the statistical relevance of your session. We can give you, results and suggest ways that you can improve your remote viewing capabilities. And then all of the sessions on Social AV are verified blind. So anybody's session that you see, you can know to be 100% true. You can know no one's cheating, no one's peeking. Obviously, people that are in the space, we've seen things for ourselves, but a lot of people newly coming into the space, that's their first question is like, well, how do I know this is real? So we're trying to solve that problem. And so just a quick rundown of what that looks like. So on Social RV, you can see somebody's session. You can see the target that was associated with their session. We have community-based scoring. We have self-analysis. People can write about their perceptions. We've got our AI scoring. People can leave comments and interact with the sessions. And then one of the most fun features we have is you can see other session results for the same target. And so if you've ever taken a remote viewing class, you'll know one of the most fun parts about it is seeing other people's results for that same target and seeing where your data overlaps, where it differs, things like that. Seeing data that's really non-obvious, but still seems to overlap, that can be very fun. And so we host one of the largest target pools in the world. We host several hundred targets, soon to be a few thousand targets, where people can go and practice remote viewing by being tasked these targets. And then we also have some functionality around customizing your target pools, esoteric targets, guided audio meditations powered by binaural beats and things like that. So it's really easy to hop in and learn and have a successful first session if you're new to the space. And then we have platform-wide statistics that show that, these sessions are better than chance. And so in this chart, down is good. Down means it's real. And so you can see as we collect more sessions, the statistics are showing more and more that yes, remote viewing is better than chance. Yeah, and so Social RV is quite a new platform. It's less than a year old, but in that time, we've amassed almost 1,800 users. We've collected over 13,000 remote viewing sessions, and we've got a lot of community engagement on those sessions as well. And so where we are today, we're not the largest remote viewing experiment by any means. There are people who've done things with hundreds of thousands of sessions, but we are the largest public data set of remote viewing sessions. Anybody in the world can go and look at our sessions, all 13,000 of them. They can take our novel cryptographic technology and prove for themselves. They can validate any session and prove that it was double blind and that Social RV ourselves couldn't have tampered with it. And then they can also rerun our scoring methods to reproduce the results for themselves. So they can be as pedantic as they want. They can go all the way through the sessions and really prove to themselves like, okay, yeah, all this data is legit and it's showing better than chance. And so I hesitate to say that we've solved the first problem, but we've certainly made significant strides into that first step of the roadmap of providing definitive source of proof on the internet for open-minded skeptics to see for themselves that psi is real. And so looking into the future, Social RV kind of has three different pillars that we're focused on: consumer, research, and applications. And these each feed into each other. So on the consumer front, we're trying to create the Duolingo for psi, or the Headspace sort of for psi, provide people a firsthand experience where they can see for themselves, they are psychic, they can have that first aha moment. And many of our users have that first aha moment, and then they reach out to us and they say like, oh, you must have swapped the target after I submitted my session because surely this was like too good a hit. Right? Like we see that a lot. People have a great first experience. And because they can see other people's sessions, we can show people what's possible with dedicated practice. And because of the scale of our platform, this allows us to create a really high velocity of sessions we can use for research. So users can opt into having their sessions used for research, and we can allow researchers to use our platform to analyze our existing data sets to find new learnings or validate existing understanding of psi, to run new experiments on our platform. One of the biggest issues with research is getting participants. Well, we have, hundreds of sessions a day on Social RV and growing quickly. So we have a place where someone can formulate an experiment and actually get a meaningful amount of session results quickly to validate that experiment. And we currently have research in flight with some great researchers, many of whom are on the call today. Damon from Entangled, Helene from Ions, Deborah from Irva, and many more. And we're continuing to work with those great researchers to validate our findings and run new experiments on the platform. And then finally, applications. So I think that economically useful applications that are reliable is the last big barrier to public acceptance of psi phenomenon. If you explain electricity to somebody, it would sound like magic, and most people probably wouldn't believe you. But my iPhone works, so who cares, right? Like, obviously, the electricity seems to be doing something useful, so I'm just going to believe that electricity is real. So we want to get to that same place with psi. So one of those solutions is a marketplace for psi services, answering the question for practitioners like, well, how can I pay my bills with this new psi ability that I've fostered, right? You can see there are platforms like Etsy that sell psi services, and they're very popular, but there's still no dedicated platform on the internet to purchase or to sell these psi services. Like Etsy witch is like a common term in the social vocabulary, right? But there's no place other than Etsy to hire your Etsy witch. And then finally, a prediction market with associative remote viewing. So we have strong reason to believe that the reason that associative remote viewing to predict market outcomes, like predict stock market movements and things like that, haven't been reliably successful. They've been successful, but oftentimes something falls apart later on in the experiment when they try to replicate it. We believe the reason for this is actually a scale problem. And so we're going to be one of the first people who have that meaningful, reliable scale. We hope to have a really successful ARV experiment that continues to work for years. And hopefully we can use some of those resources we can amass that way to fund further research. So why now? I don't think I need to tell the guys, or men and women here, why now, but obviously, public appetite's higher than it's ever been. And with AI coming, not only is consciousness the next frontier after AGI solves all the physical sciences, but also there's going to be a crisis of meaning, like what's left for humanity if AI can do all the things? Well, if AI is not conscious or doesn't have these psi abilities, that's all we've got left is psi research, right? And we've got, hundreds of millions of people who are curious, but the truth is stuck in obscure academic journals and just really difficult to action on. There's not just like a place on the internet you can point people to, an app you can point people to download to really get into the space. So we're looking for funding. The funding would go to the several different areas that we're really looking to invest in. So one is additional research. Big shout out to John Chavez from DMT Quest. So we've received $200,000 from them that we're using to fund our in-flight research. We're also looking for additional funding for cash incentives to increase participation, find existing great remote viewers who want to be compensated for participating in research. We want to fund better learning materials, so video lessons, more guided audios, live classes, other high quality learning materials. And then, of course, marketing. Like, we just want to get the word out. This thing is real, right? You can try it for yourself and you'll have a good experience if you come here. And a little goes a long way. So my day job is, automating advanced business and engineering solutions with AI tooling. And so we've been able to apply that to remote viewing. We've been able to apply that to social RV. We ran super lean. To date, we've spent less than $80,000, most of which has been, or 40% of which has been user acquisition to get to where we are today, not counting the money we've spent on research. Yeah. So we're hoping to raise $500,000 over the next year to continue funding these efforts. And financially, we have a 501c3 nonprofit, which we can accept donations to fund the research, but we also have an LLC for the actual social RV company. So we're open to equity investment as well. Yeah. So we're hoping to show the world what this next imponderable is. And thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Chase. And isn't it phenomenal? Who here is going over to the website to check out all this research now? I think this is one of the biggest things that I've found in consciousness research is that people want to see the research, and I love that you showcase all of that on your site. And what's really fun about this moment here is that we're currently working with Chase and our next speaker, Hakeem, to produce video games to basically allow people to do some remote viewing through a video game as well. So I'm excited the way that all of these people are coming together to collaborate.